Hello and welcome to another Michigan Military Technical and Historical Society Museum COVID-19 museum virtual tour. So we're going to have our final installment here in our Jeeps of Ford exhibit. We're going to stop here. We're going to start with our little wooden model here of the M718 In 1951, the United States Army went out and said, "Hey, we want a replacement for the Jeep." Post-war, we had stayed with the GP, with the standardized wartime Jeep, the GPW and the Willis MB, and then they went with the M38, which was very similar to the. If you park them side by side, they look almost identical. But one of the big things was that they went to the T90 transmission, which was a much better transmission, and a few updates. The M38 was very similar to the CJ, and then you had the M38A1 that was the bigger body, bigger fender, which looked a lot like the CJ5. And for those of you from my generation, that looked a whole lot like a CJ7. In 1951, the Ford Motor Company was awarded a contract to design a replacement for the Jeep. The U.S. Army Ordnance Tank Automotive Command began working on the prototyping with Ford, which went through 1957. And unlike the previous Jeeps, the M151 was designed as a unibody, so it was not a frame on body. It was a unitized frame and body. It would have four-wheel independent suspension, and but other than that, it very much retains some of the Jeep-like characteristics. What we have here, here's the box that it came in. This is and for those of you that are familiar with the production of that area, these wood models were very common. I remember back in the day, they had hundreds of these lining the hallway over at TACOM down at Building 200. I don't know what happened to all of them, but they would. Every time they had a new vehicle, you'd build a model like this that probably went out to trade shows or whatever. So this one here was marked to Ford Motor Company, Dearborn, Michigan. Here's the little box that it lived in for a large part of its life. And these hood numbers here are the same hood numbers that are in the photographs of the XM151E1, which is the actual design that was accepted by the United States government. Unfortunately, we don't have a whole lot of provenance behind this. It came to us in a somewhat convoluted manner. A gentleman found it at an estate sale and bought it. Actually, he bought the box. He didn't know it was in the box. It was just the box. And then when he opened the box, and then we found out about its existence, and we ended up making a deal and purchasing it from him. But unfortunately, we didn't buy it from the estate ourselves, so we never had a chance to talk to. We don't know what estate it came from, or we're never able to talk to anybody, except for the gentleman who bought it at the estate sale. So in the museum, we have the M718A1 frontline field ambulance. It is based on an M151 M151A1 Ford. This is a Ford-built. The data plates indicates this is a Ford-built vehicle. It most likely came out of the Livonia or the Highland Park plant. We're not 100% sure where it was produced. This vehicle was originally from the Mike Yeck collection down in Dundee. And we haven't really done anything to change the exterior look of it from his collection. It's probably third or fourth in line to go into the restoration shop. Hopefully one day we'll be able to get to it and bring her back to her former glory. You can see the original color here is coming through the rattle can spray job that was done on it at some point in life is peeling off. Like many of the 151s that were sold, it was cut in half and then welded back together. This particular one was not done in a very pretty manner and definitely needs a little bit of help. We were missing a lot of the litter racks and things in the back, and we have over the years been able to collect most of the stuff that we need to put this back together. Everything is, so this is full configuration with your 3 litters. Right here you have these little eyelets that would have held the medic seat down in place. We're missing the medic seat. And these holes that you see here actually were for seat belts for the medic. But obviously in this configuration the medic would not be able to ride in the back. But you could hold 3 litter cases in this setup. If you configured it, you could also carry, walking wounded or seated wounded. So we've been collecting a lot of parts for this over the years, and we have a lot of stuff in our storeroom to put her back together. But some of the things are interesting. The 718, in order to get these litters in, they had this the passenger seat that would fold up and fold down, so you could actually get the 2 stretchers in. And this has got the later style driver's seat. The early style driver's seat had a knob up here in the front where you could screw the seat backwards and forwards. The later ones had these little click-in. But this is an M151A1, so that seat is correct for this. This was built in 1966, and do a little walk here. You can kind of see around the back how it's laid out. This vehicle does have the cold weather heater in it over there so it probably spent at least part of its life in a colder climate. We are missing the canvas top for it. We do know somebody who reproduces them, but that is an incredibly complicated top, so complicated equals expensive. So one of these days we'll get the top for it and then get it over into the shop and get this body squared away and maybe even get it running again. 151s are probably best known for being squirrely. The 718, because it had extra weight on the back, I think was a little bit more stable. But the 151s, here on the model, you can kind of see what the problem was. You see how those rear wheels kick in? The way the rear suspension was designed originally is if you unloaded the rear end and it came back down, it could come down like this. And that makes the vehicle wobbly. The M151A1, they upgraded the suspension a little bit, solved some of the problems. And then the M151A2, they redesigned the rear suspension and made it a little bit more stable, but it's still definitely a vehicle you have to respect. I personally haven't driven one, but everybody I've talked to, they are a little bit on the squirrely side. I believe my father told me that, when they had these when he was in the service, they would load the back seat with gas cans to put some weight on it to keep it from jumping and unloading that rear suspension. I know when I jacked this one up, when I bought it, we took the wheels off and cleaned it up. And when you set it back down, the wheels want to kick in like that. And you kind of got to jostle the thing from side to side to get the wheels to settle down where they're supposed to be. So probably my biggest thing is I want to restore this because I want to drive it, because I want to see how it drives and kind of live that experience of what these were like to try and get down the road. So we'll come back around and we'll do one last swing around this side, and I want to wrap this up with some numbers. So over there is our GP. So the Ford built 4,500 of the GPs. They built the Ford GPW, and I want to caveat this with a little asterisk, is because there are, if you go to the Ford archives, the numbers don't agree. But the generally agreed on number is 200,000. Let me get this. Let me get my brain working right. 277,896 GPWs were built by Ford. They built 12,781 GPAs, and the M151 we're not entirely sure, The first contract that went to Ford was for 10,000. So at least 10,000 M151s were built by Ford. There were a lot of M151s built, but it was one of those, this vehicle was built by a number of different companies. So I have not been able to find a document that clearly states how many were built by Ford, how many were built by AM General, et cetera, et cetera. But we know that at least 10,000 were built by Ford. That was the initial contract. The World War II numbers, the reason why there's some question is that we believe that one of the Ford historians may have combined the GPA or the GP numbers and the GPW numbers together, because there are some documents in Ford that show 277,000 and there are some documents in Ford that show 282,000. So they think the 282,000 is he may have added in the 4,500 GPs into and made a cumulative total. But again, it's one of those things that there's a lot of argument about. And actually, I have the number. The M151, there was 100,381 M151s built total. They were built by Ford, Kaiser, and AM General. But we don't know. I don't have the breakout of exactly how many were built by each company. So at least 10,000. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and walk over here, and we're going to sign off. Everybody stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you soon.